Someone specific is losing the battle against their own feelings right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, on April 11th, as Aries energy reaches maximum combustion, something inside them is cracking, and you already felt it before you clicked play. That quiet shift you sensed, that unexpected stillness in your chest, the intrusive thought about them that arrived without invitation and refused to leave. That wasn't wishful thinking. That was signal. Aries peak energy doesn't ask permission. It acts. And what it's doing to this person in this exact window is something they cannot prepare for, cannot perform through, and cannot stop. There's something deeper happening here than what most people will tell you about April 11th, and it will be revealed in layers, because that's the only way truth this size lands without collapsing you. Before we go further, one thing needs to happen. If something in your body responded to those first words, if your chest tightened or your breath changed, that's not coincidence. You are not here by accident. You were drawn into this specific window because something real brought you. So anchor yourself in it. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and comment the words April 11 below, not for the algorithm. Because declaring yourself inside an energetic portal is how you signal to the field that you are present, open, and ready to receive what this date is already moving toward you. You've been feeling something shifting in this person this week. Something you couldn't quite name, something that made you want to look at your phone differently. That's the pre-collapse signal. You're already in the frequency. Now, let's understand exactly what's happening to them. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac for a reason. It rules identity, self-image, self-assertion, the very architecture of how a person sees themselves and presents themselves to the world. When the sun reaches peak combustion in Aries, it doesn't illuminate gently. It burns. It applies maximum solar pressure to every structure a person has built around who they believe themselves to be, and more critically, every structure they've built to protect themselves from what they don't want to be. The ego is not a villain in this story. Understand that. The ego's function is protection, not truth. It builds walls not out of cruelty, but out of survival. But Aries' peak energy doesn't negotiate with protection mechanisms. It burns through armor, not through love. The fire goes after the armor and leaves everything else standing. And this person, the one you've been holding in your mind, has been wearing armor that Aries has now run out of patience with. You may have noticed their irritability lately, a sharpness that didn't quite fit the situation. You may have observed them keeping unusually busy, filling every moment as if stillness had become dangerous. You may have sensed a kind of overcompensation, an extra layer of certainty in how they present themselves louder than usual. That is not confidence. That is the ego working overtime because the pressure underneath it has become almost unbearable. What has their ego actually been protecting them from? That's the question. And the answer changes everything. Because what you may have interpreted as pride, as coldness, as indifference, as them simply not caring enough, was never any of those things. Not indifference, a fear too large to name out loud. Their withdrawal was never about you meaning nothing. They pulled away because you meant everything. That is the inversion that Aries peak is now forcing them to confront. The ego constructed a very specific story, that they were fine, that distance was a choice, that needing someone was a weakness they had successfully avoided. But you were never just a relationship to them. You were a confrontation with vulnerability, the one thing their ego most needed to avoid. You represent the specific proof that they are capable of wanting something they can't control, and that terrified them more than losing you did. You may have lived through the hot and cold pattern, the almost moments that pulled back just before they became real, the conversations that got close and then suddenly changed temperature. That wasn't cruelty. That was self-protection that cost them more than it cost you. It was a person fighting repeatedly against the part of themselves that kept choosing you every single time. How much energy does it take to convince yourself you don't feel something you absolutely feel? The answer is more than any person can sustain indefinitely. And this is the precise mechanism that April 11th Aries peak is activating right now. The Aries solar culmination creates what functions like an involuntary internal audit, unconscious, uninvited, and impossible to postpone. Suppressed emotional truths do not stay suppressed under this level of solar pressure. They surface as physical discomfort, as intrusive memories that arrive fully formed and without warning, as a longing that bypasses the mind entirely and lands directly in the body, in the throat, in the chest, in the specific ache of a moment remembered too clearly. This person has been thinking about you without consciously triggering it. You may have felt them closer energetically this week, that strange sense that they were somehow present even without contact. That is not your imagination. That is the field responding to their attention, finally breaking through the barrier they erected between feeling and acknowledging. The ego maintenance required to sustain distance from you has been consuming more energy than they have available. April 11th is the tipping point, the specific moment when holding the wall costs more than letting it come down. There is a moment when this breaks completely, and it is closer than they want to admit. What their inner world actually looks like right now is not what they are projecting. The certainty of their distance, the composure, the silence, the apparent resolution, that is performance, not coldness. Performance. There is a difference. And underneath the performance is a person replaying specific moments with you, not to get over them, not to find closure, but because those moments keep winning the argument. Every time their mind constructs a reason why this wouldn't work, why the distance was logical, why moving on was the right call, one specific memory appears and dismantles it. You know which moments. You were there for them too. The bandwidth required to sustain the ego's narrative, the story where they're fine, where you're in the past, where nothing is unresolved, is gone under Aries peak energy. April 11th removes the capacity for that kind of sustained self-deception. What the collapse actually looks like is not dramatic. It doesn't arrive as a breakdown. It comes as a quiet admission, alone, in a private moment, that they miss you, that the argument inside them is over, that the heart won. You may have felt a strange calm settle in around you this week. Not the numbness of giving up, but something steadier. That's you registering at a frequency beneath thought that something has already shifted in them. And what this shifts in the dynamic going forward is where your own Aries energy becomes relevant. Because April 11 is not only dismantling their defenses, it's activating something in you. Clarity. A quiet but absolute refusal to chase. Self-respect operating not as a strategy, but as a natural state. When the ego in them breaks, they become undefended. That may look like unexpected softness. It may come as an outreach that feels almost accidental, as if they're surprised themselves by making it. It may look like a change in how they hold eye contact, a hesitation before speaking, a tone that no longer maintains its carefully practiced distance. The energy balance shifts. The one who was withholding becomes the one who needs, and your role is not to rescue them from that vulnerability, not to rush toward them, but to hold steady in your own frequency. In the next 48 to 72 hours, through April 14th, watch for what emerges, not obsessively, but with the open attention of someone who knows something is already in motion. You may notice a decrease in your own anxiety about this, a growing certainty that doesn't depend on external confirmation, a sense of quiet power replacing the exhaustion of waiting. That's real. That's Aries activating what was already yours. But before this fully lands, something needs to be released. The weight you have been carrying, the exhaustion of holding space for someone operating in ego defense, is real, and it is heavy. Validate that completely. Staying energetically present for a person who couldn't yet meet you there is not weakness. It is not a failure of self-respect. The fact that you didn't simply erase your feelings and perform indifference, that staying cost you something, is evidence of depth, not evidence of smallness. Not patience from smallness. Presence from certainty. There's a difference, and your heart has known that difference all along. You may have questioned yourself in this waiting. The moments of wondering if you pushed too hard or not hard enough. The grief that arrived at strange hours. The anger at the love that refused to go away no matter how many logical arguments you built against it. You may have experienced the specific exhaustion of loving someone who was performing not loving you back. The self-blame is something to put down now. Not about what you did wrong, but about what they weren't ready to admit. Your heart knew before your mind caught up. Your heart knew this person wasn't finished. The moments where you sensed them close, even in their silence, where something in you refused the narrative of it being over, that was accurate. The feeling that brought you here is data, not wishful thinking. And Aries peak energy applies to you as well. This is also your moment of identity clarification. You are not the person who waited indefinitely from a place of smallness. You are the person whose presence in their life became the one variable they could not resolve. That is a specific kind of power. Own it. Their ego has already lost. Understand this fully and let it settle. The admission is not the event. The event already happened internally, in a moment they couldn't control, when their heart won the argument for the final time and they had no architecture left to reverse it. April 11th. Aries peak is the moment the heart's victory becomes permanent. They cannot go back now to convincing themselves they don't feel it. The wall that required constant maintenance, daily, active, exhausting maintenance, has reached the point where that maintenance is structurally impossible. What Aries peaks do is burn through armor, not through love. The love was always there, underneath, untouched. And now the armor is gone. You are the only one in this person's mind that their heart keeps choosing. Every time. Against every logical argument. Against every ego-constructed narrative. Against every attempt to rewrite the story into one where they don't need you. Their heart chose you. It keeps choosing you. And Aries peak just made that undeniable to them, inside themselves, in the private space where performance has no audience, and the truth is the only thing left standing. This is not a maybe, this is an already. The uncertainty you've been carrying. After today, they carry it. The heart always wins the argument. Always. Aries peak just made it impossible to postpone that reckoning any further. You don't need to do anything dramatic with this. You don't need to reach out, construct a strategy, or perform a version of yourself designed to trigger the moment. The energy is already in motion. What you carry forward from this is not urgency. It's the Aries frequency itself. Clarity, directness, self-assurance grounded in the knowledge that you are the unresolved presence in a heart that cannot solve for you. If contact comes in the next few days, meet it from that place, not from relief, not from the residue of anxious waiting, but from the steady certainty of someone who knew. If it hasn't arrived yet, hold the same ground. Your presence in their life is not something they invited. It's something they cannot remove. That is not a small thing. That is the specific gravity of being someone whose absence a person cannot successfully rationalize away. You are not waiting for them to choose you anymore. You are watching them choose themselves. And that road leads directly back to you, from exhausted uncertainty to grounded certainty. That is the arc you just completed. Not because of what they did, because of what you finally fully know. If you made it here, this message already did its work in you. Like this video, if it confirmed something you've been sensing. Subscribe so you don't miss what the Aries window reveals between April 14 and 19. The next movement in this energy is already forming. And comment the word sealed below. Not for the algorithm. To close the energetic loop you opened when you declared yourself at the start of this. Sealing intention is how frequency becomes form. Click the next video on your screen now and carry this